And we start with shocking news from Saturday's Mirror. We're being ruled over by a wealthy man. This is highly unusual. It's going to take some getting used to, isn't it, Diane?
Yes, it's a lot to swallow, really, isn't it? When you we have the cost of living crisis, we have soaring inflation, and yet our Chancellor of the Exchequer is the first frontline politician to make it onto the Sunday Times rich list with the £730 million fortune he has. I mean, good grief, it just gets you, doesn't it? And this list is talking about all the billionaires, and this comes after he's saying, oh, everybody, it's going to be tough. Is it? Because no matter what he says, you think, I don't think you quite understand, Rishi. Like, all this says to me is there's going to have one of those awkward photo opportunities is going to come up again. He's going to make another cringy one where he tries to prove that he's normal like everybody else. Like, he'll be there trying to buy a can of beans or something, but instead of taking it through the scanner, he'll just plop it into the basket and just waltz on out, like thinking it's Amazon Fresh or something. Yeah. I would love to see Rishi being tackled by one of the security guards at Asda, but what can you say? I mean, we need the billionaires to start spending their money, but not in a Bruce Wayne fashion, because that always annoyed me about Batman. Like, you had this billionaire who had all this money, and what does he do with it? He runs around at night dressed in lycra solving crimes, whereas he could actually just spend his money to make a better police force full of Batmans. You could have 1,000 Batmans.
Yeah, absolutely. Batman is just a midlife crisis, really.
Massively
the whole thing. It's a personal and emotional meltdown. Is there a sexist element to this story, though, given that most of the money belongs to Mrs. Sunak?
Oh, so what would you say the sexist element is? Well,
it's this idea, isn't it, that, because his wife is rich, it's somehow his money. I mean, they are separate sovereign individuals. So she's the heir to a £1 billion fortune. Her family are Indian entrepreneurs. So he's worth a few million, she's worth many hundreds of millions. So is it a bit sexist just to say, oh, he's rich, it's her money?
Oh, but did they sign some kind of prenup? Is a question. Like, do they have some sort of thing in place? Whereas, if they go their separate ways, a la, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and she decides to take revenge in the bed.
God, every relationship for you is Johnny Depp and
right now it is, mate.
That's all it is.
Johnny Depp and Amber Heard is the lens through which Diane Spencer sees the world.
And
at the moment.
And Batman.
Yeah, correct.
It is, yeah, it's quite a colourful place, my mind, I'll be honest.
But, I mean, it's not... Josh Howley, it's not his money. Technically, it's his wife's money. Is that an important distinction or not?
No, I think, look, they're married, they have that money together. I personally think it's actually a really good thing to have one of the super rich at the front line of governments because he can then see and understand what their needs are. You know what I mean? No one's asking about... Everyone's always like, what's a pint of milk and how much is a litre of petrol? No one's saying how much is a kilogram of caviar. How much is a crate of Dom Perignon? You know what I mean? And he knows the answers.
The price of Lamborghinis. I mean, that would be a great gotcha question on BBC Question Time, wouldn't it?
Keir Starmer's not going to be able to answer that.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Ridley's going to get that straight away.
Yeah. How much is a Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow? Answer me that.
Yeah. So
Sunak's like, I got this, 250 grand.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've got 3 in the garage.
Yeah.
However, isn't this a bit small-minded? The politics of envy. Why is your bank balance an arbiter of the extent to which you know what people are going through?
It's just the level to which you can have empathy for other human beings.
That's identity politics, which
I don't know if it is identity politics. It's about...
You're against Josh Howard.
I am against identity politics.
I'm a poor person, so I understand the poor.
No, I think it's just harder to... I think it's harder to genuinely have an understanding of what it's like for people who are genuinely struggling. That would be my...
But I think... I wonder... Look, I've got my work cut out defending a billionaire, haven't I? But...
I like that you're doing it, though.
Yeah, go for it.
Good.
Rishi Sunak, it wasn't his idea to shut the country down for 2 years. He was Chancellor of the Exchequer. I mean, yes, he could have resigned from the government, but, if you're Chancellor, if you lock people up and tell people not to go to work, you've got to have furlough, that costs all his money. So he's reluctantly had to do all of these things.
So reluctant.
He's created... Well, I mean, we've heard there was pushback. So apparently he actually ganged up against the Prime Minister just before Christmas with Lord Frost and Jacob Rees-Mogg. That's a boy band from hell, isn't it, by the way? Right? That was like if the Addams Family did boy bands, Rees-Mogg, Sunak, Frost. But he talked Boris Johnson out of cancelling Christmas because of the impact on the economy. So we know that he's been a sceptic to some of these measures, but reluctantly cracked on with it. But the bottom line is that, you know, he's got a brain. He understands the economy. His concern, when he says to people, there's not much we can do, he's just telling the truth, isn't he? Because what can you do now to fix the cost of living crisis? If you give money to people, that involves more borrowing, which is more cash printing, which is more inflation.
I think there are things that he can do. I do think the windfall tax is going to be done anyway eventually, and I do think that they could be doing some more targeted. They're saying, oh, the system doesn't work with universal credits. They can't. That's just, it's not true. The fact is, to the families, and they can identify them very. And we're not talking, you know, millions and you know, maybe it's like 1 million people or whatever, which, you know, out of 50 million or 60 million isn't. But they target those particular families who are on 3 jobs, who have got a bunch of kids or whatever it is, whatever their life choice is, they are super struggling. Those people can be helped. And he can do that. And it's not talking about giving everybody a big furlough and everybody a big cash day. And because the fact is, when they do these cuts or they do, you know, everybody benefits. And there are a lot of people who aren't struggling as much.
It is tricky, though, because these measures, I mean, I totally agree with you. We should identify those at most needed. I think that will happen. But all help is inflationary at the moment. So it is a bit like putting out a fire with petrol. And this is a grim economic reality. This is the situation we're now in.
OK. All right, then.
But look, I hope I'm wrong. And I'm certainly not against doing everything that we can to fix this, because people are choosing between heating their home and feeding their kids. It's a nightmare.
Yes, and do you know what you could actually say that publishing the Sunday Times rich list at this particular point in history is a rather inflammatory thing.
Yeah, because all those people who are struggling are going out to buy the Sunday Times when they could be heating their home.
Well, exactly right. Although you can burn it. I mean, there's a lot of paper.
It's so big. It's so big. Do you know, if you get a big broadsheet and you really like scrunch it, roll it up, you can essentially make a torch. It's fabulous.
Wow. I don't know. You can still buy broadsheets. It's all about GBNews.